All right, hello everyone. I am here with McKenna, a tutor from Summit Tutoring, and this evening she is going to go over the AP US History, and we're going to look at the free response and DBQ questions. She's going to give you an overview of what you can expect come test day, as well as everything that you should include in your DBQ response. All right.
Hello, I'm McKenna. If you look, today we'll discuss what to expect on the test, my own personal tips, and what I think was really helpful in my experience, and how you should take your time to study and actually prepare for the exam. So we're going to start off with the rubric. This year, the rubric is out of 10 points. You'll have 45 minutes to do the test and an extra 5 minutes to actually submit. The first point that you can get is the thesis point. What you really want to do is look at the prompt and make a claim that is relative to it. You should have a definitive stance and either completely agree or completely disagree with what they're asking. If you go for maybe an indecisive or kind of in the middle point, sure, you can argue both sides, but you don't really get the message across, and you'll be conflicting all of your evidence against each other. And then the second point ties into the first paragraph. It's the contextualization point. You're going to want to have a cheat sheet prepared. If you include information from each decade or so that's covered on the test on this cheat sheet, you can use specific facts from the time period that you're asked about and earn that contextualization point. The biggest section would be the middle section. It's basically your body paragraphs. The College Boards calls this the evidence section, and it's worth 5 points in total. You can earn 1 point for correctly describing 2 of the documents. This doesn't mean just go in there and quote them. You need to know really the context behind them and what they're asking for. You can get another point for using 4 of these documents rather than the 2. Another point would be for using 2 of the sources to defend your thesis. You would take the document and tie it in on whether or not you're using it to argue for or against the prompt there. And then you can get up to 2 points for using extra evidence. The extra evidence is anything that's not from the 5 sources they're giving you this year. Usually they'd give you 7, but with the test being online and open notes, you can really use your extra time to Google things from that time period and help connect them back. And that'll make you seem more knowledgeable, and also you can really just search for them this year. I would recommend, I skipped a slide, doing that last to gain those points because you don't have a lot of time and you probably shouldn't search up every document because overall this test is multifaceted and you can argue whatever point you'd like as long as you can back it up. Uh, yeah. Analysis and reasoning are the last 3 points on this year's rubric. You can get up to 2 points for contextually explaining a document, which in this way, you'd want to use context as think about it as the 5 W's. You have your who, what, when, where, and why. You can talk about who was this for and who was the audience that the writer was trying to persuade with. You can talk about why it was written, what motives were behind it, kind of what events led up to the document's writing or the advertisements, drawing, or whatnot. For the what, you can analyze what are they trying to achieve here. It would be really helpful to look at who the author is specifically, namely their occupation would really help, whether this person is a politician or a soldier will really help show you what their specific viewpoint is. The last point that you could earn is 1 point for a complex understanding. This point is very subjective and probably the most difficult to achieve. I really wouldn't stress on trying to achieve this one. You're either going to get it or you're not, so let it come naturally. If you can tie in what you're speaking about to something from a different period, it's probably the easiest way to achieve this point.
One thing I wanted to address before you move on is someone in the chat mentioned if browsers are actually unblocked during the test. And as far as we know right now, there's no lockdown browser, right?
Yeah, they're not locked. The College Board actually recommends having a split screen open so that you could have your prompt up on one side and what you're working on the other side. And then for the goals, I would say use 4 or 5 documents. Backups are really good to have, and if using 2 documents gives you 1 point, you might as well use 4 documents and get 2 points and double your points for doing the same exact thing. If you can do it once, you can definitely do it again. I would recommend having organized info in a single document for the test as well. You get less time than you're probably used to, and if your notes are on paper and you're flipping through them or you're unorganized, you're going to find yourself wasting a lot of time on the test. If you use a Google Doc or whatever you're usually used to, clicking Control F will actually allow you to search a keyword in the document, and it'll easily and accessibly pull up exactly what you want for you. Context is the next thing I really recommend. Analyzing the document and looking for the objectives, again, the 5 W's. Interpret however you want. And then your main objective would be actually to submit the paper on time. People will have issues and not be able to do this, and you're really going to want to avoid that. The College Board has said on Twitter that given a problem arise during the test, to submit what you have and you can appeal to take the test again in June. So then you would just end up taking it twice, but that's not a guarantee. As long as you get something in there, you'll have better chance of passing. My personal tips of mine, the first one would be the random fact approach. You can seem more knowledgeable as well as you can have your facts already prepared. And even if you don't specifically get a point from it, it'll kind of like tell the reader like you're well researched, you know what you're talking about. Maybe this specific period wasn't the best one to give you, but you do know about the topics. They did say your teacher can appeal if you fail the test for you to actually pass, given your grade in class and what they think. So if you can show you have some knowledge, it'll really help you in the long run. You can buy your essays back for like $12 from College Board in the fall, and I bought my APUSH ones back, and there was a part where I feel like it was the strongest point of my essay. It didn't necessarily get me a point, but I was able to list which specific states seceded from the Union. And I feel like that was really like the main detail of my essay that elevated it and maybe helped me pass. Another tip of mine would be to try and hit as many points as you can. I would say aim for 9 points, which would be like all the context, the first 2 points, and just hope for the difficulty point. You want as many points as possible and backup points because you may not necessarily earn every single point that you try for. We don't know right now how specifically, like what score, if you need like a 7 out of 10 to get a 5, if you need a 5 out of 10 to get a 5. So you're really going to try to get as many points as you want. A 5 is not necessarily a perfect score, it's just the highest one you could earn on the exam. If you get a 10 on the exam, or if you get an 80% on the exam, you'll probably end up with a 5 each way. So you don't have to overwork yourself and try to be perfect, because that's not the point of the exam here. It would really help if you knew your personal weaknesses going into exam day. Really try not to stress and overthink. You'll get sidetracked and lose focus more easily. I would avoid or use caffeine based on a personal need. If caffeine's gonna keep you awake and more aware of the test, of course, maybe you'll want to use it in that case. But if you get really jittery or you have an empty stomach, like just know that that might be a downfall. I'd say eat if you can and make the effort to sleep if you know you're well studied. The all-nighter may help you if you feel you really are forgetting like a section or something. However, sleep is very important to keep focus. You'll really have to know yourself here. I would have a game plan the day of and use a checklist if you can't think well under pressure or need help with organization. Maybe have a plan in case your device dies, what to do then. Have your Google document that you're typing in share not shared with other people, but so you can access it on a different device just in case. And then your testing options. A computer works best if you're using another document. You can copy and paste from a document into the test or download it and upload it. When I tried the College Board's online test simulation thing, what I found was every time you log out of your sorry, every time you log out and go to Google Docs from Safari and then you try to go back into Google or whatever, you will get kicked out of the test and you'll have to re-log in with your AP number and everything. So if you're taking a photo though, you'll want to do it with your phone because laptop photography would probably make it more difficult. You do have the availability to test in May or in June. Of course, the June date might be your only chance to take it. If you had an issue in May, you'd have another time. Well, if you have an issue in June, you're not going to be able to retake it. Just know that, but June, you will get an extra month to prepare. The APUSH test isn't first, so you can really analyze like what happens during other people's tests. I think government is on the first day. Say those kids get kicked out, you'll probably want to take the exam in May. So I would recommend to pay attention to other people's tests, because especially like a big test like AP language and composition that everyone's taking, and even APUSH, a lot of people take that. There is a greater chance that the server will kick you out and that you'll end up not being able to take it if you only take it in June. I would say really pay attention specifically to the rubric. They're grading you based on what they want, not on what you want to say, and the prompt should really be your main focus here. Even if you stray away from the prompt, you could still get some points, but once you lose that thesis point and are off track, it would be very difficult to really gain anything. My final note would be right before the test, review the material, check in early, have everything charged, and really remind yourself why you're taking the test. This self motivation will help you stay on task, wake up on time, and really do what you have to do in order to succeed. If you're taking the test for college credit, just remind yourself that this will probably save you a couple $1,000 if you get a 5 and you could test off like 2 histories or something, or if you don't get to get if you don't have to take the final in class, then like maybe you're just taking it for that, and then don't stress as much, just try your best. For preparation, again, the review sheet, have it organized and factual. If what you're talking about from the review sheet, if you just have facts and you copy and paste them over and they're incorrect, then you did all that preparation for no reason. Have stuff from each decade covered on the test. You'll probably want to go decade by decade and have them separated out, because if you do a bigger time period and the essay you're given to write about is between periods, you're going to have a difficult time organizing during the test. Albert.io, I'm not sure if a lot of you have used this. They have free response and multiple choice questions. The multiple choice they grade for you, and they have really in-depth answers and like why each answer was incorrect, but they don't grade the free responses for you. You can have a teacher that do it. It's more updated than the AP classroom questions I've found. Those questions tend to be from the early 2000s or that. Albert.io also lets you calculate like what you would have gotten on the exam, which probably won't be as accurate this year given that there's not multiple choice questions, but you can see where you're at and how much you need to prepare for the exam from that. The College Board releases the free response questions, specifically the ones from last year. If you look over those answers and why they got the points, you can see examples of like who got the difficulty point and why they got it, why other people didn't. Before you look at other people's answers, I would say answer the prompts yourself and grade them based on what the other people got and how you think you match up to it. Usually you wouldn't want to academically compare yourself. However, here, just know you're comparing yourself to their scores. It doesn't matter if you scored higher or lower than them, but it will help you in this instance to compare your answers so you know how you're on track. Analyze yourself here and really think why you maybe interpreted it incorrectly or why you think your prompt would have gotten the difficulty point when another person's wouldn't have. Familiarity is another big one. I would say just be as familiar with everything as you can. It might sound a bit silly, but watch Hamilton. It'll teach you at least something and probably be easy to memorize things based on like sing-songiness of it. Read a chapter every night from the textbook. It's proven that basically the first thing and the last thing you read while studying are more likely to be things that you remember because you kind of start with it and you're more focused, then you end with it and it's kind of like, oh, like I remember that. That was right before I ate dinner or something. And then the steps to prepare, we've laid it out for you to study and become familiar with the resources and do everything from reading the textbook, look over what your teacher gave you, everything online, etc., and then organize. Have what you want for test day. Even during the test, you could eat in that during the exams this year. If that's what you want, make sure you have a plan for it. Put what you want on the review sheet. Then you're going to want to practice and test yourself once you know the material. If you're practicing and you don't really learn it yet, if you haven't learned it yet and you're testing yourself, it's pretty useless unless you're using it as like, this is where I'm starting at. But if you just start off taking a bunch of tests, you probably won't learn a lot from it because you don't have the actual material memorized. And then review what you missed and why you missed it and analyze your performance. Try to learn everything and catch up to speed with what you missed and focus on those weak points. At this point, if you have any specific questions or that, you can ask them now in the chat and I'll answer them.
I know one question that someone had, and I've seen it quite a few times across Reddit and our Discord, is how would you recommend uploading a written response? Like you mentioned, it's not a good idea to use a laptop camera, which I agree because it's going to be really low quality. So would something like Cam Scanner be a good idea to use on your phone and then some like email it to yourself? Would that be better than just taking a picture with your phone?
Well, someone did mention that maybe if you emailed a picture of the test, because you can't really have pictures like of the exam yourself, like that wouldn't be allowed. I'm not sure if you can email it yourself or if that would if you emailed it to yourself from your phone, I'm not sure, but it may present the issue of like you're sharing the information, so you're just like they might end up having to look into it more. So that's something I would advise against. I feel like the best way to do it is to type it into a Google Doc and copy and paste it, or type it into Word or whatever. If you take photos of it, your handwriting probably won't be as legible as if you typed it. And also, it takes a lot longer to physically write and cross out than it would to just simply type it. I know in years past you had to use a pen on the free response. I haven't heard it addressed this year if you could use a pencil or that, but I would say for safety, just make sure you write with a pen in case that's what they want. I know the darker ink photographs better and is usually what they use for the SAT and that to upload it, so they're more used to reading it. Yeah, but the Google Doc copy and paste is what I'd honestly recommend.
All right, so it seems like we haven't gotten any other questions. So before we wrap up, for those of you that are watching this live, if you do have any questions after our session, feel free to join our Discord. It will be linked in the description. If you're watching this as a recording, same goes for you. Our Discord link will be in the description. You can come on and ask any of our tutors in the AP chat that we have any questions that you might have about the exam. And yeah, that's about it for today. All right, thank you for coming. And if you have any other questions, feel free to ask them in the chat. I'll be monitoring for it a few more minutes. And then beyond that, again in our Discord, we'll be available to help around the clock. All right, have a good day, everyone.